Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome to Going In Raw Countout. That's right. It's an old show that we're doing this week. So there's a little bit of backstory. We're a podcast, so we can talk backstory. We used to have a weekly top 10 podcast called Countout, where we would take a look at various things. It's on our channel. We'll link to some of the videos here in the end screen here. Yeah. And for whatever reason we stopped doing it, probably just ran out of ideas. And then we started doing like monthly retro reviews. But we want better numbers. So we're going to see if a top 10 podcast. I mean, that's it. This is transparency, Larson. It's transparency.
Totally.
The King of the Ring 1996 review did 6,500 and just sort of stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just stopped right there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good podcast too. But you know what? They're not always going to hit.
Exactly.
But it's always fun. It's fun to try new ideas or to reconstitute old ideas. So that's what we're doing here with Countout. And on top of that, like, I don't know, when you step away from something for a long time, you start getting a bunch of fresh ideas for that particular thing.
You know, I'll say this. The graphics, opening graphics for Countout, the kind of neon looking stuff, I always thought those looked phenomenal. Those are great looking graphics.
Thank you. Yeah, they look pretty good. I'll bring those back too.
Good. That was my next question.
Yes, they're back. They are back, I think. If I can find them, they'll probably be in this computer over here. So of course, since the last time we did an episode of Countout, there's been a lot of change in the industry. I mean, obviously, the last Countout we did was probably like far before pandemic. It's probably been 3 years or so.
I think it was before AEW was formed as well.
Yeah, I think it was as well. And so there's been a lot of changes in the industry and a lot of stories that have come and gone. A lot of anniversaries, new wrestlers, new situations, scenarios. And of course, we came across a scenario this past week where two wrestlers decided to put their foot down to Vinnie Mac. Not a lot of people do that, incidentally. Sasha Banks and Naomi. Unhappy. At this point in the filming of this episode, this is Thursday of the week that it sort of happened. So it's Thursday after the Raw that they walked out. Unhappy with their creative for a six-pack challenge match and generally speaking, their tag titles and the division they're in. Mm-hmm. Unhappy with that, they told Vince, doesn't work for me, brother, and handed their titles over to Johnny Ace and then hit the road. We're not sure. There's been no updates on like, are they coming back? How long are they going to be gone? Are we going to see them on Friday?
Yeah, heard nothing. We've heard absolutely nothing.
So it's an interesting topic, though, and the idea of people sticking to their guns and saying no to Vince McMahon was a pretty interesting one. So we put together 10 wrestlers, and honestly, there are more than 10 wrestlers. We'll go over some of our almost rans maybe at the end of the episode here.
Sure. Sounds good.
But these were some of the the 10 probably most interesting stories of wrestlers saying no to Vince McMahon. I stand my ground, sir.
No.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Let's dive into it. Number 10. Jeff Hardy. So this was actually quite genius of Mr. Hardy, who clearly didn't want to be part of the WWE anymore, and so he just left.
Yeah.
And he used his own. Let me ask you this real quick. So we'll go through what happened.
Yeah, let's go through what happened. So let's go back to December 4th, 2021. Jeff Hardy, he's in the middle of a match. He's tagging with Drew McIntyre and Xavier Woods against the Bloodline. He's in the ring. He's doing his stuff. He tags in Drew, and he just gets out of the ring and walks up through the crowd. Just leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Leaves. So reports from PW Insider shortly thereafter suggested that he was sent home from the road, and then a few days later on December 9th, it was announced that WWE had released Jeff Hardy. And then reports started to surface after that, which seemed to indicate that Jeff Hardy was essentially given an ultimatum by WWE. You either go to rehab or you lose your job. You get released.
Yeah.
He chose
Larson?
He said, no, I am not going to rehab.
No.
So released he was. So about a month or so later, January 2022, Meltzer reported that WWE realized they probably made a mistake and tried to bring Jeff Hardy back to the company. Even offered him a WWE Hall of Fame induction if he came back. What did Jeff Hardy say here?
No.
He declined the offer, and he showed up in AEW March 9th of 2022. So Jeff actually spoke about the incident that led to his release on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast. This is what we had to say. These transcripts are from Fightful. He said, that night in Edinburgh, Texas, I finished my heat. I took the heat and I said, I'm ready to go. Went over the rail, disappeared to the crowd. Naturally, they think I took something like drugs or whatever, but I didn't. If I was that bad, I should have never went out there. That's the way I see it. I thought, just another unpredictable thing I can do, and I'll get away with it. Again, it was one of the smartest things I've ever done because everything worked out so perfectly, mainly because my first day in AEW, I felt valuable for the first time. The care and love I was shown, I got chills thinking about it. In WWE, it felt like they just wanted to keep me there to sell action figures. I put so much love and joy in painting my face, and when I see it come out, immortalized in an action figure, I'm like, that's why it do this.
I do this?
I do this. That's why I do this. It's so cool. That's one thing I'm super excited about in AEW, my first action figure with the face paint.
Do you think he knew when he left due to this erratic behavior? Do you think this was calculated? I mean, look, I know this is obviously some amount of reckless speculation, but that's kind of the fun nature of what we do sometimes.
So, I mean, there was like basically immediate conversation and chatter to that effect after this happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
people saying, oh, he's using his history of substance abuse. But I mean, I don't know if he would have been savvy enough to think, okay, if I just exit via the crowd, they're going to ask me to take a drug test. I'm going to say no. That's a bit. I would think that's a bit much.
It
right?
is. That would take, because it would take several things to happen: the drug test, the ultimatum, so on and so forth. That would have to happen for his plan to work. You know, like if you're writing a movie. And after, like in hindsight, you see that and like, oh, this makes all the sense. What a genius idea. But if you look at it from the inception of idea, a lot of things have to go your way if this is going to work out. And some of this stuff you can't predict. You know, you can't necessarily predict that they're going to give him an ultimatum.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I think that it's kind of malarkey to think that, oh, he planned this and staged this so that he can get out of WWE. You know, maybe when he got that ultimatum and he was like, wait. So number one, your response to this isn't to like sit me down and talk with me man to man and let's try to hash this out. It's, hey, you do this or else. Number one, that's off-putting.
Yes.
What happens if I say no and see, like, call their bluff? Because there's no guarantee that, you know, calling their bluff would have resulted in him being allowed to leave anyways. So you're right. I think too much had to fall into place for him to have planned this in the first place. What's also interesting about this is that even going back, I forget, is one of the retro reviews we did when they talked about working with Jeff Hardy and understanding that what you get with Jeff Hardy is akin to what you get with an artist. He is a very creative person, but sometimes they're not going to be the kind of, oh, they're going to come in, punch the clock. They're going to be late sometimes. They're going to do oddball things sometimes. And granted, with his history of substance abuse, yes, I mean, he literally showed up at that TNA pay-per-view, you know, under the influence, and that was, you know, a pretty sad thing to see. But, and so it's kind of understandable they'd say, hey, is something going on here? At the same time, you also have to understand that you are dealing with a creative individual who might be prone to just doing some shit like this.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to your point earlier about, well, if there's concern, sit him down and talk about him.
Yeah, right.
You know, and try to find out if anything is going on, and if so, what's an appropriate plan, of course, to take to address it. Sitting him down and giving him an ultimatum. People don't usually react terribly well to ultimatums.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have leverage. If your thing is, you know, man, my brother is in AEW. It's sitting there waiting for me, and you're gonna threaten to release me? Like, why would you do that?
I know.
You know what I mean? And of course, WWE realized they messed up in the end and tried to get him back with a Hall of Fame induction, which, by the way, they're going to give him anyways, probably in like, I don't know, 5 years or something.
I know. It's going to happen regardless. So
exactly.
It's not much of a carrot to dangle there to try to lure him back.
No, it's absolutely not. Let's move on to the next one. Number 9.
9.
Neville, aka as known now known as Pac, of course. This happened back in October of 2017, back when the cruiserweight division was, while not a key focus of WWE, although it did main event some segments.
It main evented some Raws. It did.
Yeah, it did. Because of Enzo Amore, he was like a really good talker. They had some really cool stuff going on out of the cruiserweight tournament, bringing in a bunch of great talent. Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali. Of course, then they started sort of rearranging some of the talents that maybe weren't being used, but they would fit that bill, and Neville was one of them.
Yeah.
Heel
Neville was an absolute delight. We got, the first little bits that we see now with the Bastard.
Absolutely.
The ingredients were introduced here. Heel Neville. And even when he lost the Cruiserweight title, it was wildly entertaining because he came out on Raw. I remember this vividly. He comes out, and the entire Cruiserweight division's there, like Enzo celebrating his victory. And Neville comes out like he hasn't slept in a week, like he hasn't taken a bath in a week. It was amazing.
He was in the crowd at TakeOver in the same way, because I think he had lost it right before then.
Yeah.
To was it Austin Aries or something like that? Then he won it back at WrestleMania. I forget what it was, but yeah, no, he was doing it was based, like you said, sort of the proto Pac that we got back then, and he was doing some really interesting work. But the thing that they realized was that Enzo Amore was for what he was a ratings draw. When they would put this guy on TV, give him a microphone, people would tune in, they'd pay attention, and that's sort of what matters the most to WWE, are those characters that can draw in the eyeballs. So they put the title on Enzo Amore, and instead of maybe trying to spread the love around, you've got this awesome Neville character now, the heel Neville persona. Why not run with that? They really just went all in on Enzo Amore. So apparently this all led to an argument backstage with Vince McMahon on the October 9th, 2017 episode of Raw, after he was asked to lose to Enzo Amore in a cruiserweight title match. Neville asked for his release, but he wasn't granted one until almost an entire year later, in August of 2018. He was just sitting at home getting ripped, because after his release, he released a picture of himself in like a parking lot somewhere, and just he had muscle upon muscle upon muscle, just looking absolutely amazing. In an Instagram Q&A after the fact, he explained a bit of this, the WWE departure. He says, "They gave me the opportunity to shine, and shine I did. The lads over there are great, but they ran out of ideas for me, so I left. It wasn't really Enzo why I left. I don't hate the lad. He was just annoying backstage, and putting the title on him was bad, especially beating me. I was worth more than being jobbed out to jobbers. That's why I left." So evidently in this argument with Vince McMahon backstage, what did he say, Larson?
No,
Vince.
No, not doing it.
Not gonna do it. Not today, not ever, Vince.
Not gonna do it.
Yeah, and honestly, like, that was sort of, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at this list right here. That was like one of the first ones in sort of, for people who just decided, hey, there is another option out there. And again, this was obviously pre-AEW.
Yep.
But he was also factored in a big way in AEW's plans at the beginning.
Yeah, but this was when New Japan was gaining a lot of prominence.
Yeah.
Here in the States especially.
Yeah.
They're really on the map again.
And he had the benefit of Dragon Gate, his old promotion.
Exactly.
Willing to say, hey, we want to bring you in to be the centerpiece. And again,
that's the first place he went after he was free of his deal.
Absolutely. And it seemed the sort of situation was like, hey, this guy, he is, it wasn't just like, I think Cody asked for his release and was given it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Neville didn't, he left. He was like, I'm not doing this. And I don't know if he actually literally asked for release and they said no, but regardless, he was just like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to sit at home. I don't need to do this. And then he just apparently waited out whatever length that contract would have been another year. So yeah. And that, like, it's the first one sort of in sort of modern, sort of post WWE brand split 2016, I guess, that I can think of somebody, because prior to that, and we're going to talk about CM Punk here in a little bit, but, WWE had all the leverage.
Yeah.
There was really nowhere else for people to go because, like you just said, New Japan wasn't really on that ascent. I mean, around 2017 is when they started to, but prior to that, there wasn't really a whole lot of options out there for people to make good money.
Yeah, not on the same level as WB. Let's move on to the next one, Steve.
Number 8.
Sergeant Slaughter. So this one's interesting because I remember this. I remember this whole thing. Not because I remember it from the wrestling perspective. I remember it from the toy. So, Sergeant Slaughter, he was a member of the WWF at the time roster in the mid-'80s when rock and wrestling thing was a thing, and it was a massive thing. WWF was on their way to becoming the name brand of professional wrestling at this time. And so in the midst of that ascent to the top of the industry, apparently Sergeant Slaughter got a call from Hasbro about being the spokesperson for G.I. Joe. So if you don't know G.I. Joe, they're action figures, they're toys, military stuff.
And a movie franchise.
And a TV show. So you got G.I. Joe, you got Cobra. And they're fighting and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways. As
good guys and bad guys.
More or less. So as Slaughter tells it during an interview with Inside the Ropes, he agreed to a deal with Hasbro. And naturally excited. G.I. Joe at the time was a massive toy franchise and a cartoon and all that stuff. It was huge.
Yeah.
So he shows up to an Allentown TV taping or a show, and he walks up to Vince and tells him, hey, I got a deal with Hasbro. I'm going to be a real-life G.I. Joe. And Vince says, that's great. Too bad for you. You can't do it because we just signed a toy deal with LJN. And Slaughter's like,
the hell is LJN?
It's another toy company. So apparently Vince wanted Hasbro. Hasbro said no. No, they said no to
They said no. Yeah, number 7, Hasbro.
So Sergeant Slaughter got into a conversation with Vince, and Vince pretty much said, you can't do it. Conflict of interest. We have a contract with a toy company. Can't do it. And Sergeant Slaughter's like, fine, I'll quit. I'll quit WWE so I can do this. And apparently he repeatedly tried to give Vince his notice, and Vince wouldn't accept it. He wouldn't let him quit. And then he tried to pull I own the Sergeant Slaughter name. And then Sergeant Slaughter's lawyer says, no, I have paperwork here. Sergeant Slaughter owns Sergeant Slaughter name. He has since 1974.
Yeah, he was wrestling for quite a while before this.
So, so the first, I remember this clearly because I got it. The first Sergeant Slaughter G.I. Joe figure, you couldn't buy in stores. You had to cut out like the UPC things on the back of the toys and send it in. And then you get the Sergeant Slaughter one. Yeah. And I remember doing that. I remember the day it showed up. I remember walking from the post office to my parents' car, opening this box, getting my Sergeant Slaughter toy. I had no idea who he was. I just liked G.I. Joe at the time. And I wanted new G.I. Joes.
That's the cool. Wasn't that was the best. That was the absolute best.
It was
you had to get stuff through I mean, I guess you do still with Amazon and stuff, but still.
I mean, you're doing the thing where you're like, it's marketing, hey, buy these toys to get another toy, it's guaranteed money for the toy company. But yeah, it was like you're on a mission.
Yeah,
I have to buy, Mom, Dad, I have to buy 5 toys so I can get one more.
I know. It was really
all
cool.
You got to do is pay shipping for this one toy.
Man, we had it good in the 80s. I'm sure everybody thinks that of their childhood.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But still, it was so cool back then.
It was. I mean, yeah. So this is interesting from this Inside the Ropes interview with Sergeant Slaughter. This is what he says about in terms of trademarking his name and how WWE utilizes, like in terms of IP, licensing IP versus creating their own. And he kind of takes credit. He says, all of what you see with WWE today is because of my attorney and I. Nobody can do anything in the WWE without, if they have their real name, they have to give it up while they're there. Vince pretty much creates every other name, so he owns them, and he just brings in the wrestlers to be those characters. So now whether that's historically and factually accurate in terms of Slaughter kind of being the fulcrum in that process or not, I don't know. But, given what we still see today with wrestlers coming in, apparently edict from Vince that they can't use their real name, their real first name, even if they got a fake last name or a kayfabe last name. It could have all started with Sergeant Slaughter.
Hey, let me ask you this. This is a conversation kind of related to this. 10 years from now, I assume AEW is still going to be a thing. Is Tony Khan going to adopt that philosophy? Because there's going to be some big names making their name on his money, and I think he's going to realize why it's a savvy business move to not allow another company to capitalize in a major way off of something you created.
I don't know.
Be interesting to see how that goes down. Let me ask you another question here. Slaughter's only 5 years older than Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. Had Hulk Hogan not existed, there would have been a big vacuum. But do you think he could have been the guy? You think he could have been the man over there?
You know,
he was the. I know he was like a bad guy for a bunch of his time, but like he could have been.
Well, at this time, he was, because he says in this interview that he was. So they had two tours for house shows. He says,
"Oh, was he the top of the B team?"
Yeah, he was B team, top of the B team face, because he was having matches with Iron Sheik on the road.
Okay,
on
all
one
right.
tour.
I wonder if that would have been the situation.
It's possible. He didn't have the obvious charisma.
Sure.
That Hogan had. So
yeah,
and that's pretty much what got that, in politicking is what got Hogan ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who knows?
Interesting stuff. Let's move on. Number 7. Mustafa Ali. Not that much different of a situation than Neville. Obviously, for the longest time, he was one of the most underutilized talents in WWE. On January 16th of this year, 2022, he tweeted out, "I am requesting my release from WWE," along with a video that stated, "I have a message that is much bigger than my dreams in pro wrestling. Despite my best efforts, I will not be able to deliver this message while working with WWE. Therefore, I am requesting my release from WWE." Now, Fightful Select followed up with a lengthy report, which noted that Ali had debuted a new gimmick a few weeks back. Mm-hmm. Now, we had seen these videos on his social media where it was sort of taking a political slant, like he was a campaigner, a candidate of some sort, talking about a new, better America or something like that. And it was kind of interesting. I'm not sure exactly where we're supposed to go, but he's a very creative guy.
Yes, and he's got his partner in terms of production, Craig Mitchell, and they've done a lot of really awesome little video promos and vignettes.
Right. So apparently that gimmick was initially approved, but apparently Vince had changed his mind and instead pitched Ali an idea that Fightful described as, quote, something Mustafa Ali would never have done. Fightful adds that this pitch, quote, led to a heated argument between the two, and Ali said no to Vince McMahon and just left. He'd been off TV ever since then, and then it was later on in that week, it was reported by Fightful that Ali had been denied his release request by WWE. Subsequently, WWE released quite a few people from the company. He was not one of them. A couple of weeks back from filming this episode, so probably beginning of May, I guess, or maybe it was after Mania, I forget. Ali came back and is now fighting sort of for the U.S. title. Austin Theory and Miz and all them. And they've referenced him taking his ball and leaving. They haven't really, they've made several references to what happened, but nothing too specific. I love that he's a guy who stood up for himself clearly. And this is one of those things where, this is why WWE would benefit from a younger mind as a showrunner of sorts, because I feel like somebody who just is more in tune with, I don't know, society, life, politics, what have you, could take an idea that Ali would have, a guy who's got a lot of perspective. I mean, he's always said, hey, I want to be a guy who, when kids see me and see my name, they see a hero. They see somebody they can look up to. It's not that he has been opposed to playing a heel. He did the retribution thing. But he obviously has a strong point of view, a strong opinion, strong morals, and somebody who could help him foster what could be a very interesting gimmick in the world of pro wrestling. Vince just ain't that guy.
Nope.
He's not that guy. They have relied on the evil foreign heel far too many times. They're literally doing it right now with Gunther, but I mean, Gunther's cool. He's going around chopping people. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that's not the way to go, and that's why I think they need some younger minds and some people of color in
definitely
in the higher up positions there.
Definitely, yes, absolutely, 1,000%. But
he said no to Vince, and then they brought him back, and I'm still kind of curious. One day we'll get a talk as Jericho or something
about the conversation that led him back.
Yeah, he'll be out of there.
Yeah,
I think he said he's got like 2 years left on his contract.
He's got a lot of time left on his deal. A lot of time.
Yeah. Let's move on. Number 6. Paige. So if you guys remember back in late 2020, just in the thick of the pandemic, WWE was doing a couple things. Number 1, they were releasing people left and right. And number 2, they were also trying to prevent their wrestlers from making $1.01 in a time when they had killed house shows, this, that, the other, and these wrestlers were trying to make an extra living or extra money, extra income via things like Twitch and Cameo. Well, WWE got wind of this. They're like, no, we want that money.
Yeah.
So WWE ended up cutting a deal of their own with Cameo. And they apparently had plans for Twitch, which is the reason why they were pulling these wrestlers.
Yeah,
but
that's never happened. A year and a half
that never happened.
Hasn't happened.
So it was kind of interesting. There seemed to be some sort of split between, like, if you're on main roster, you couldn't do it. Like AJ Styles was doing it, he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, same with Cesaro.
Yeah, Cesaro couldn't do it anymore. And then apparently, and I think this was according to Tyler Breeze. The breaking point for WWE is when they realized how much money Lana was making off of third party
doing the Instagram stuff, right?
Instagram stuff, and they're like, no, we want that, and so everybody gets caught up in it.
Yeah.
And so one of those people who was very active on Twitch was Paige, and so she had said so she was very active on Twitch, doing very well for herself on Twitch. She still is.
Yeah.
And at one point during one of her streams, during the heat of all this, on one of these streams, she said this, I've honestly got to the point where I cannot deal with this company anymore. So now I have to make a very important decision. I'm effing tired, man. I broke my fucking neck twice for this company. Over fucking worked. I broke my neck twice for this company, and all I want to do, they don't realize that this community isn't just about fucking subs. It isn't about that. We built a wonderful community, a wonderful fucking family where this is an escape for a lot of people, including myself. A little bit later, she had also said on stream that she's going to continue to stream because it's good for her mental health. She previously noted what we talked about before, said she's not able to go on the road, so that community helps her a lot. And so basically, she told Vince McMahon in his new edict about Twitch, No. Got to do the British accent. No, this is my Twitch. And it was kind of cool. And we have no idea like what kind of repercussions there might have been there. Apparently, she has a contract that's supposed to only go through next month, apparently, in June of 2022. She has said that on stream that was the case. She does not know, and this was like a year ago that she had said this, not sure if she's going to get re-signed by the company. They don't do anything with her, which to me is bizarre.
It really is.
It is absolutely bizarre. I know Meltzer had speculated, because there had been a bunch of releases after this. He had speculated that they kept her around basically because they do understand that she is still, her name value still carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But it's weird that they would just ice a person and not bring him out to be like, remember how good she was as the GM of SmackDown?
She was great. Any role you put her in, she's great.
Yeah.
And for them to have her under contract and not utilize her, I know she has made some reference to trying to get back potentially in the ring. We don't know the status of that. We don't know what her health is like. Whether she's been close to cleared or cleared for anything, we don't know. As far as I know, we don't know. But still, to have her to contract and not do anything with her is bizarre.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. Once she goes to AEW, I mean, I don't know. They make wonderful work of people who can't get in the ring anymore. And I have no doubt that you bring Paige over there, she's one of those people who can bring little bit more of her audience over.
Yep.
Keep those people around. You're looking at, instead of getting 950, then you'll get that million every single week. And that's how you do it. You just bring in people who have value.
Yep.
And that's what AEW's been doing. It's been working really, really well. Speaking of which, number 5. CM Punk.
Bill Brooks. So during the 2014 Royal Rumble, CM Punk, I think, came in number 1 in this particular Rumble. He was in the match for a long time. He got concussed as well. And so he had to get eliminated by Kane. Following night on Raw, Punk just fed up. Injuries, all sorts of health issues. He had like a massive infection in his back at one point. He pooped himself in the ring. Just getting fed up with not getting the opportunities that he thought he deserved, including main eventing WrestleMania. So apparently he got into a heated discussion with Vince and Triple H, cited all his problems, and just said, I don't want to be in here anymore. No. Walked out.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, so I just, before we, earlier today, I went and I read through a lot of the transcript from the Colt Cabana podcast, because this is, of course, where he opens up. It was dropped on Thanksgiving of 2015 or 2014. I forget.
I think it's 2014.
Probably 2014, because it was January 2014 that he left. God, it's hard to think. It's been 8 years now. Oh my God. So reading the transcript hurts, because he talks about everything that he went through leading up to it, the concussions, like you said, the staph infection, which he had that they would not, touch.
Yeah, all the Z-Packs, which led to him pooping his pants during a match.
Pooping his pants. It was really, really rough, and he was burnt out. And along the way, there had been many promises made by Vince McMahon in the form of IOUs. So, he'd say, hey, pal, we want you to wrestle Ryback again. And he's like, this dude injured me last time. You know what? I should be up there wrestling like Brock and stuff. And he's like, I'll owe you one. He'd said that about Punk turning heel because he was going to lose out on a bunch of merchandise royalties because he was selling more shirts than Cena. And then, of course, there was a WrestleMania thing, and it was pitched to him to fight Triple H. And he's like, well, when I was white hot, I already fought Triple H 2 years ago, and he won. He put himself over when I should have been there. He pitched the WrestleMania triple threat with The Rock and Cena. He pitched all that stuff, and he was telling Vince, he's like, why do you think Batista Orton's the main event match at Mania this year should be Daniel Bryan? Should have been me 2 years ago, but this year is Daniel Bryan's year. And the match pitched to him was Triple H.
Yep.
Punk explains in this meeting, he turned to Triple H and said, I don't need to be wrestling you. You need to be wrestling me. And Vince McMahon was like, this is a main event. And he's like, no, man, there's not 4 main events. There's one. It's the last match. It's the very last match. And in that meeting, apparently by the end of it, Vince was he was crying. And he got up and he awkwardly hugged Punk, and Triple H shook his hand. And then it was 2 weeks later, just 2 weeks later, hey, pal, you ready to come back? No. He got that staph infection taken care of, which, by the way, could have killed him. And then they fired him on his wedding day.
Yep.
And the rest is history.
Yep.
So yeah. But now we get CM Punk at AEW, and he seems really, really happy.
He seems really happy. He seems to be enjoying telling the stories he's telling. And it's not likely, but it's entirely possible that he's AEW champion in about 2 weeks' time.
Not gonna happen.
I said highly unlikely, but it's possible.
It is possible.
Speaking of someone who's champion, like being champion, let's move on to number 4, Steve.
Number 4.
4.
Shawn Michaels. I think I'm cute. I like to be champion.
So
when Vince says drop the title, I say no.
No. So he said no to Vince a lot.
This dude loved to say no to Vince, Larson.
No, he'd say. So these are just a few instances where he said no, and one that's kind of a maybe. This last one's a bit nebulous. So apparently he said no when he was facing Davey Boy Smith for the European title in 1997. And the process, apparently Davey Boy was supposed to retain the title. No, Shawn Michaels won it. And I think he eventually just gave it to Triple H. He was supposed to drop the title, WWE title, to Vader at SummerSlam 1996. He said no. And, of course, that match, Shawn got very upset with Vader when Vader botched the spot and kicked him in the head and yelled at him a bunch.
Lars, let's just stop there for a second. The balls on this guy. The ball, like Vader's a big dude.
Massive dude.
He's a tough guy. And this 5'11", 173 pounder, probably 195.
Well, back then he was probably 200. He was pretty.
You think he was 200?
Yeah. He was pretty ripped back then.
Stomping Vader's head, saying, "Move, idiot!"
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oh,
I know. He didn't want to lose Dean Douglas, so rather than drop the title to him.
Yeah, that's the most. I think out of all this, don't you think this is the most justifiable one?
To a degree, I can understand. So he just forfeited the Intercontinental Championship. But of course, again, this is one that's a bit nebulous. We've heard rumors to the effect, but I don't remember hearing either. I remember hearing Shawn talk about. Brett may have. When Shawn gave his famous "I lost my smile" promo and citing a knee injury, dropped the WWE title rather than facing Bret Hart again at WrestleMania 13 and lose the title to him. Again, I don't know if there's been any hint of whether there's any truth to that. I know Bret did talk about how he would win the match.
Yeah,
at WrestleMania 13 over Shawn.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would have to think that somewhere in Bret's book,
it was addressed. Yes.
Almost certainly Bret addressed this from his point of view. I'm not sure if they ever would have brought it up in that. Because didn't you watch the little side-by-side interview?
Yeah, the Rivals thing. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Forgot it.
Okay. The gall of a guy, let's assume for a second, because I think it's general knowledge. Like, I've seen it so many places that he, instead of lose to Bret, he did this "I lost my smile" bullshit. Again, Vince was holding the microphone when his champion was up there. I this means so much to me, everybody. I can't do it. I lost my smile. And Vince is like, this motherfucker. And it's crazy because, like, Jake the Snake, I think just recently was like, God damn, I don't know why Vince didn't just fire those motherfuckers.
Yeah, he did say that, yeah.
And it's like, he's kind of right, but at the same time, it's like, who else do you have?
I know.
You know, like at a certain point around, like, what was it, 96 anyways, like Bret wasn't even signed to the company. Nope. So you had like Warrior, Ahmed Johnson. I'm thinking of the King of the Ring.
Well, you know,
thing.
Warrior's not going to stick around long. You can't count on him. I know.
And that was literally the last pay-per-view he was at.
I know. Yeah. You had Hall, Nash, gone. Macho Man had already left. Bret wasn't signed.
Yeah.
You had Undertaker. You had Mankind now, and then you had Shawn Michaels.
I wonder, do you think that maybe it was simply because Vince respected the balls on Shawn Michaels?
That could be.
To do everything on your list here, to do all that stuff.
It's entirely possible.
Pal. God damn it, pal.
God damn, pal. You got some grapefruits on you.
Got some grapefruits on you. Oh, man. So, yeah, Shawn Michaels loved to say no to Vince. Number 3. Bruno Sammartino, probably like the legit GOAT in WWE history, man. This guy had the title for he was like the Bill Russell, man. Yeah, 8 years, and then for another 3 years or something like that after that. So Bruno, of course, worked as a commentator for WWF after his in-ring career came to an end, but he soured on Vince's product, citing the over-the-top presentation and drug use. So wait, this wasn't, and we're not talking about the Attitude Era here. This is like the Hogan days.
This was
right?
late 80s when he stopped working as a commentator for WWF and then found his way to WCW after this. Because, he had a lot of issues with the WWF product, was actually a vocal critic of the company publicly. And he was even offered, at one point, a WWE Hall of Fame induction in 2004. What do you say about that, Steve?
He said no.
No. So on his podcast, Jim Ross spoke about Bruno's attitude towards WWE and this meeting about the Hall of Fame induction. These transcripts come from Inside the Ropes, is what JR to say. That would have been perfect for Bruno to enter the Hall of Fame in New York City, but he was still not happy with the positioning of the genre of the product from WWE. So this is in the midst of the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
Bruno still had issues that were deep-rooted and so forth. He was not ready yet. I didn't sense whatsoever the venom or any hate or anger. I sensed more frustration, and I'm not ready to go back there yet type of scenario. Of course, he would eventually be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2013.
Triple H was sort of the guy spearheading that. Listen, Bruno, we're a family-friendly company now. We're publicly traded. No more of the suck it. No more of the TNA. The boobs and stuff. Not the company. This different company.
It's got a new name now.
Yeah, it's got a new name now. Impact. What kind of garbage is that? Anyways, Bruno, if you can call me back, that'd be great. This is Hunter. Paul. Game of game.
The game of game.
Yeah. So yeah, but then Bruno again, he did the what was it? It was like a JBL interview he did, right?
Yeah, sounds
the
right.
The Bradshaw thing. It was a really good interview.
Yeah.
Man, somebody's gonna make a mint when they make a Bruno movie, because that is a
hell of a story. That is a hell of a story. Man. I know.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Make that an HBO Max series. Let's talk about number 2. Bret Hart. That's right. Montreal Screwjob. So here's the deal. Vince offered me a 20-year contract with the WWF, and I took it. And then like a year later, he was like, I can't afford this anymore. And I was like, okay. And he's like, you should go to WCW. I was like, okay, I will. And then, but I was champion. And then, right before that, I was supposed to drop the title, we were going to be in Canada. And Vince was like, you got to drop the title in Canada. I was like, that'd be character assassination. I can't do that, Vince. And especially not to Shawn. I hate that guy. And so Vince was like, well, you got to do it, pal. And I was like, no, I don't. And so they just did it anyways.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and I'm happy. There's Dark Side of the Ring, the episode on the Montreal Screwjob, really illuminated a lot of the details that I was not aware of.
Agreed.
Between Cornette kind of taking responsibility for coming up with the idea. Bret had creative control for his last 90 days in the company, so legally he could say no to dropping the title to Shawn. It was there in writing.
Yeah.
And that's outside of all the issues that they had with each other, and everybody involved tried to find some way to convince Bret to drop the belt, and he didn't want to, not in Canada, not to Shawn. And the thing is, they had another month with him.
Yeah.
They had more time. Bischoff says, stick around. Drop the belt next pay-per-view. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
They had it all worked out. For whatever reason, Vince just wanted it to happen that night in Montreal at Survivor Series 1997.
Yeah. And then Bret said no, and then the man who made the call and got it to happen, Triple H. Apparently, on a phone call, there's a bunch of heavy breathing because they were like, oh, God damn it, pal, we don't know what to do. And then apparently Triple H is the guy who just said, we'll just got to take it off him then. Mm-hmm. And then apparently it was Jim Cornette who
referenced the original Montreal Screwjob that happened in 39 or something 30s.
Like that. Yeah.
Where they orchestrated out where someone was champion, they got the belt off.
Yeah, that was Triple H too. And so Jim Cornette was like, yeah, look at this old fucking wrestling magazine I have. Look, they did it before. Let's do it again. Which is nuts. That guy is just a wealth of information. Also, he's just mired in bullshit. Mm-hmm. So anyways, we all saw how it played out. Honestly, probably the most fascinating wrestling documentary. Oh, yeah. One of the most fascinating documentaries, bar none, in wrestling or no, is Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows.
It's fantastic.
The fact that Vince, and never again, by the way, did he ever allow any independent media organization of any kind to come backstage and have that kind of access.
Nope.
It's kind of sad. Like back then, it seemed like those guys really did, that situation really did sort of put the kibosh on that, because like, how freewheeling is that? It's like, oh yeah, no, Vince, they're with me, they're cool, they're good, and that was good enough. That was good enough.
I know.
It's for Bret to say, yeah, they're making a movie about me. And Vince didn't think, oh, this is not the good night.
Oh, I know, especially that night. What does he expect was going to happen?
You think that ever crossed Vince's mind? Like, man,
probably not.
I need to tell Vince. I got to tell Bret, no, you can't have the cameras here because they're gonna pick up some shit. But that'll clue Bret in. I wonder if that or if that was just like neither here nor there.
That's a good question. I don't know if that's ever been addressed. We should look into that at some point.
Let's ask Vince. Vince, did you know those guys are gonna be there? Yeah. Tweet at Bret. A good point. That's a good one. He's probably relatively accessible. Like, I'm sure, hey, we're a big podcast. We could ask him. I don't
Yeah.
do that. It seems weird.
We could tell him. We took his going in or his Bret Hart math and used it for going in Raw math. Made it better.
You stole that. You stole that from me. Do you give me proper credit?
We do. We say it was partial
in
collaboration
the form of money.
Well, we didn't trademark it.
$50,000.
Sorry, Brett. I don't think you could trademark math.
Brett screwed Brett. Can't trademark math. So yeah, we all saw how that played out. It was weird. What do you call it? Contract negotiations gone wrong.
Yeah.
On live TV.
Yeah.
That's how that happened. Let's talk about number one, Larson.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. I walked into a WWF episode of Raw, June 10th, 2002. Vince says, hey, Steve, you're going to do the honors. You're going to do the job to Brock Lesnar. I was so hepped up on energy drink. I said, oh, hell no. Ain't going to happen, son. Maybe at a pay-per-view that's a big money match. Walk me through that, Vince, you dumb son of a bitch.
Yeah. A King of the Ring qualifier on Raw.
Fucking qualifying match for a guy who, by the way, a year and a half later wasn't even going to be in the company anymore because he didn't like to fly.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to check something real quick to see if the entire tournament was on pay-per-view or not. Because
2002, yeah, I don't know, man.
It looks like it was at least the quarterfinals and onward.
Brock won in 2002, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, so the semifinals and onward were on actual pay-per-view.
On pay-per-view, okay.
Yeah.
And then, the shit was going down at Raw, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, a couple weeks later was the pay-per-view. Yeah, on the 23rd. Yeah. And so, of course, that episode of Raw, Vince apparently told everybody, talk all the shit you want about Stone Cold. And it culminates with The Rock cutting an absolutely blistering promo.
Ooh.
Blistering.
Ooh.
Talking about how if you don't want to be here, don't be here.
Yeah.
Saying, Austin took his ball and went home. Well, this is my home.
Mm-hmm.
Woo.
Yeah. That was pretty rough, man. I wonder if The Rock regrets that one. Just standing up for Vince McMahon, even though he knows. I don't know. What do you think? Was Austin right here? He probably should have stuck around. He's probably said, I'm not doing that, but we could do whatever else you want.
It's hard to tell because it's, seemingly he was beat up. He was burnt out.
Yeah, he was all messed up, yeah.
His creative wasn't great.
He only had like 3 more matches
I
or something after
know.
that. Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a culmination of things. Like we saw with Punk.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily there's one instance where seemingly they just say, all right, I'm done, enough. But it's something that usually builds. And this seems to be the case with Austin too. I don't know. He says he regrets how he approached it.
Yeah, right.
I
don't think he regrets the sentiment. I think he still feels he was right. And by the way, he was.
Yeah.
Like, this is Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. This ain't some hole in the wall, pal. Yeah, he was absolutely in the right. But yeah, I don't know. He seems to regret walking out and handling the way he did. But at the same time, goddamn, he was talk about a dude with leverage. This guy, he was the biggest thing that came through WWE ever in terms of money. And it's crazy, isn't it crazy? Like, Vince cared nothing about the longevity of his guys. It was like, hey, bring you in, burn you out, make as much as we can off you, and then off you go.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you could have squeezed another 5 years or so out of Austin if you just used him right.
I know. So apparently, Stone Cold was fined $650,000.
Yeah, I think that ended up being brought down to $250,000.
Yeah, 250. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that's a nuts figure right there.
Yeah.
That is a crazy big figure right there.
Yep.
But he was making money hand over fist with those.
Yeah,
Austin
he was making
shirts.
a ton of money, but still, it's pretty darn shocking when, the top name in the company, arguably the top name in the history of the company, walks out, tells Vince, no.
Yeah,
not losing on free TV to Brock Lesnar.
You damn son of a bitch.
So
Yeah, I mean, eventually he ended up coming back. There was that weird period of time when, like, I don't know, he dialed up like an episode of Bite This or something like that, and he was like shitting all over creative and stuff. And they're like, "What is happening here?" And then like Jim Ross had to go out there and talk to Steve Austin. He eventually came back, but yeah, it was for a small, like, I know he did the Mania. So this was a June. The next Mania in April of 2003
was his last match,
March or April, whatever it was.
Mania this year, yeah.
That was his last match, and I think he was gone for a spell after this incident. And Leigh only came back for like a couple things here and there. But I mean, he's remained on really good terms with the company. He's got the Broken Skull sessions. He came back for that weird promo at the empty arena Raw.
Yeah.
And then of course he had an actual fucking match this year at WrestleMania, which was a pretty big deal. And then he came back the next night and did stuff there. So yeah, no, things are all good now between Stone Cold and Vince McMahon.
Certainly seems that way.
Yeah, it's all that footage of him backstage in that episode of 24 or whatever it was.
Bischoff.
Getting along, everybody.
Yeah.
Isn't that the crazy thing about Stone Cold that we always talk about is like, it's weird that in an era where everybody, all the locker room was nothing but sharks. Like, people trying to politic. Hey, Vince, no, Rock shouldn't be main eventing WrestleMania 15. Should be me, the game of game. That Austin, the guy who was the top of the top, he's friends with everybody.
I know.
Everybody loves that guy.
Seemingly. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk a couple names that we almost put on here but didn't. One name, Jesse Ventura.
Oh, yeah.
He also, much like Sergeant Slaughter, quit WWE to pursue another venture. In Jesse Ventura's case, it was shooting the movie Predator. Again, he went to Vince, says, I want to do this movie. Vince told him, can't do it. Jesse says, No, you can't tell me I can't do it. I quit.
You know why? Because I have to go hunt an alien. Don't tell anybody. That's a twist of the movie, though.
Yeah.
I feel so down on my Jesse Ventura ever since Killer Cross started doing it.
His is exceptional.
Another one is Nails. So apparently he was like, hey, Vince, you promised me a bigger spot on the card. Vince said no to him, and Nails said no back in the form of choking the shit out of him.
Yeah.
This is told famously in an awesome Bret Hart shoot interview. Where I've never seen Bret so tickled and gleeful.
I know.
He was screaming like a woman. It was just a high-pitched squeal, like a woman.
Oh, man. Another guy that sort of on the very down low told him no was Adam Cole.
Yeah.
It's similar to the Paige thing on Twitch. He was like, yeah, they told me not to do it, but I kept on doing it anyways. I was like, you know what? I'll make sure that I'm being PG. I'm not even using my name. I'm Chug's variety streamer, not Adam Cole.
Yeah.
And then he ended up leaving because they were going to cut his hair off, give him a different name, and make him a manager.
Yep.
Why would they have done? And then he said, "You want to resign? No, baby." All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Did you enjoy this episode of Count Out? Do us a huge favor. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to us in the audio realm, leave us a rating, review, or a comment. It really helps grow Going in Raw. What would you guys like to see next on Count Out?
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.